Silence speaks, Role of Abhyasi, Desirelessness. Socrates says knowledge is virtue, and by virtue he means to refer to desirelessness. That is, according to him, the essence of education. If by acquiring high education, one comes up to that level, I think the purpose of education is served, and that is a spiritual stage. How can it be attained? The simple process for that would be constant remembrance. If the phrase, with unbroken chain of thought, is added to it, the process would then become complete. So I think this is for Satkama also, right? No, education should lead to desire.
Definition of education, you can.
Yeah.
That is the Babuji's concept of education. We have to bring this idea into our school, stating clearly that this is the view of our master we are trying to follow.
Yeah. Okay. Waiting. Waiting is also a sort of intense remembrance, which is greatly beneficial to spirituality. A poet too has written, "The delight which I found in waiting for the beloved, I could not have in the meeting." Constant remembrance shall help you to cross all stages. All the different stages and the various types of superconsciousness are unfolded thereby, and it connects you with reality. Waiting is a sort of intense remembrance which is greatly beneficial to spirituality. Crawling and restlessness. The beloved can make the lover crawl in any way she pleases. Even the crawling too, the beloved teaches the lover. And the spirit of crawling also the lover receives from the beloved. Therefore, the moment in which I set out, if it is correct, carries your own praise, and if it is wrong, involves your own betrayal. If now you ponder over this with a comprehensive view, you shall comprehend that we have received this scrolling from him alone, whose remembrance excites the devotee with extreme restlessness.
He is asking us to ponder here.
That's what I'm wondering. What is he trying to say?
That means even the idea of surrender, the feeling of dedication, all that thing comes because of the impulse from the God actually. So we think that we are regular and disciplined. We feel that we have viveka, but that feeling of viveka is also created by God. That's the main gist he's talking here. So generally ego tries to attribute that because of my hard work and my practice, I'm getting this new understanding. I'm getting true development of attachment to God or love for God. That feelings come and we exult in that feeling, thinking that it is due to the hours of practice you have put in. But Babuji here is giving, is saying that that feeling is also is given by him. He teaches that also. So all the good feelings which are coming in us are actually because of his intervention. But ego tries to appropriate and swells up in pride, and then it believes that because he is regular and disciplined, and then he is righteous, he is follows all dharma and all that. Because of that, I'm getting the insight about the nature of God. I'm getting the insight about the nature of this viveka and vairagya, and then uh, it feels like that. But the way Babuji is talking is, it is God teaches those feelings to us. We must acknowledge that. Then that's what he's saying. If now you ponder over this with a comprehensive view, you shall comprehend that we have received this crawling. Crawling is movement towards the goal. I mean, from him alone, whose remembrance excites the devotee with extreme restlessness. So the fix up your goal, which should be complete oneness with God. Rest not till the goal is achieved. That is a kind of a craving and devotion is also taught by the God. That is the idea. I'm thinking aloud. Okay.
Laya Avastha, you have written about some of your experiences, including the one about the person whom you saw in the vision. You asked me to tell you who the person was. Well, I cannot say, but this much I can confirm that often the liberated souls do feel induced to bless an Abhyasi in whom they find some light. It is so, especially when the Abhyasi is deeply intoxicated with the Master's love. The vision of Sri Lalaji's form is true, and the subsequent changing of it into that of mine indicates that he has not left any difference between himself and myself. Most of the Abhyasis do have such experiences at times. Your love has made me so spellbound that every letter of yours is highly heartening to me. I believe you must also be feeling the same condition on receiving my letter. In this sense, both of us are much alike each other. Therefore, if I feel the intoxication of love, you too must be feeling the effects of drunkenness. You say that you do not feel anything. Now tell me whether I too do not come into your consciousness. If so, I shall not count it as too little. You entreat me to save you from this mire. Usually, one stuck in the mire is aware of nothing but the mire. Can it ever be possible that the remembrance of one who is dead and gone may not bring in a similar condition someday? Do you not feel your heart merged in love instead of being stuck in the mire? The question of mire does not therefore arise at all.
What do you understand by this, Dharmesh?
Uh, so even when this person Abhyasi is telling that it does not feel anything, but there is a consciousness, there is a master's remembrance. It is just that uh, that is so much inside that the person is not recognizing that, and then master is looking at that remembrance of as a dead and gone, in the sense there is nothingness. If we are looking at master as nothingness, um,
Okay, anybody else wants to contribute the understanding of this passage? you see, that particular Abhyasi is feeling miserable, and he says, my condition, I feel that I am stuck in a mire. Mire is a dirty water, just like soggy mud and all that. You got stuck in that. So that is he's trying to say why he's complaining like that. He says, is because I am not able to remember you. He says the master's consciousness is not coming in his mind. Because it is not coming in his mind, he feels that he's stuck in a mire. But Babuji is telling one who is dead and gone, you will not remember him at all. If you are stuck in the mire, thoughts of mire will come. That's what he's trying to say. He is praising him for his condition where he's not even remembering the master. Because when Laya Avastha happens, you're united. Only when there is a separation, subject and object is there, then you'll think of this. Whenever cognizance comes, cognizance happens between subject and object. So object, suppose here is Babuji, and he is not coming into the consciousness. And since he has practiced constant remembrance, that means he has developed Laya Avastha, and that's why he is not able to see the difference. If the difference is there, then he will think about him. The thought of Babuji will come into his cognizance actually. And since it is not coming into cognizance, he is interpreting it as if that I do not have love for you, I do not have devotion for you, I am stuck in a mire. And he is now trying to say that if do you not feel your heart merged in love instead of being stuck in mire? The question of mire does not therefore arise at all. You see, usually one stuck in the mire is aware of nothing but the mire. That means you will be conscious of your property, money, relationship, your attachment to wife and children and property and politics. All those thoughts will be coming. But he is not having all those thoughts at all. So he is trying to clarify that that's not mire at all. That's it. Okay.
Good. Yeah.
Good for what? Why are you making that comment?
Understanding, right?
So you are giving a certificate to me.
No, sir. Just I generally address the members of the mission as brethren, but I think that may not be quite to the point. I should have rather used the word my heart or my soul instead. But why I do not take enough care to use them is not quite understandable to me. If I say that it is so because they do not love me to that extent, it shall then be a fallacy. Fallacy, yeah. Because I see them evidently loving me deeply. What may then be the flaw? I believe their voices do not reach me to touch my heart. Now think over it yourself and draw your own conclusion. It may not be.
When he uses the example of a telegraph in the second commandment, no? When telegraph, if you put power, the message goes to the other end. So when you are praying, your cognizance will be felt by God. That means the message, telegram message goes. Now he is telling that their prayer is not touching my heart. That means the state of mind which has to be developed in prayer is not developed in. That's why I'm not cognizant of them. So here is a clue for all of us. That means how effective we are in our prayer. We can, if you introspect, we'll know whether we are able to see that our message goes to God or not. Whether the prayer, we are creating a state of mind where, our feeling touches God or the master. So if it is not touching, that's why he's not able to. It's a clue for us to uh, uh, practice in a way that our prayer is really working. I mean, really it should happen. That means if you pass a message should go to the other side. Otherwise, telegram is not working. So if ritualistically, if you pray, what is the point? There's a lot of hidden things which we have to pick up from these reading sessions. Because I see them evidently loving me deeply. What then may then be the flaw? I believe their voices do not reach me to touch my heart. But they all love him. He agrees that they are all loving him. But then he is coming up with this point again. Okay.
It may not be out of place to say that I often use the words heart and soul for my master in some of my letters, and that was in quite a natural way. Allegorically, I may say that he was the only object of my love. As a matter of fact, I was not a lover of freedom or any such thing, but only of him and him alone. If I induce others to follow the same course, shall it not be, on my part, an act of arrogance, because that may seem to indicate the presence in my heart of a desire to be adored and worshipped? My master was no doubt worthy of it, being the fittest man to be meditated upon. He was altogether free from egoistic feelings, from desires and worldly entanglements, devoted wholly to his own self. The phrase devoted to his own self refers to a spiritual state of a high order, not commonly bestowed upon man. That was the reason why I loved him as best as I could. I tried heart and soul to get myself merged in him in toto, and that had been the life pursuit for me. It was because I got a master who was unparalleled and matchless. I have no words to express the results achieved therefrom. In a word, he is the infinite ocean of grace in which we have all to merge. But how that may be possible under the present circumstances can be made clear by following the example. Consider yourself to be C and myself as B. Now C gets himself merged in B, while B is already merged in A. Shall not then C secure his merging in A, the final goal? It therefore follows that since the greatest personality, like my master, is not available and accessible, we must make full use of the second best within our reach. Anything to add? I'll go ahead.
Yeah.
Sati. The case of Sati, which occurred recently in the district of Sitapur, has created in me some interest to ponder over it, in order to discover the state of her mind at the time. It is evident that she was inspired by the intense love which she bore for her husband, so much so that
Dharmesh, you go slowly because there's so much of psychology here is talking. And if you understand this better, it will help us in our practice. So we should try to grasp the metaphysics is trying to talk here. So be slow, because it requires pondering to grasp what he's trying to say, intellectually also, conceptually also, to grasp what he's trying to say. तो
Okay.
थोड़ा धीरे से जाओ.
Sati, the case of Sati, which occurred recently in the district of Sitapur, has created in me some interest to ponder over it.
So he is telling, it has created interest in me, and he's trying to ponder over it. He's trying to think what is the state of mind of that lady. So we also, as Abhyasis, we are trying to delve into our mind. So we should also have a similar curiosity, or a desire to know the nature of God, desire to know the nature of the master's consciousness. These sentences should give us clues about how we should proceed. He says, ponder over it. He is, as a master, is trying to ponder over the state of mind of the lady who's committed sati. I'll read this slowly. In order to discover the state of her mind at the time, it is evident that she was inspired by the intense love which she bore for her husband. It's quite clear. So much so that she could not bear the separation and preferred to burn herself on the funeral pyre of her deceased husband. So it's all clear so far. When I compare her love for her husband with mine for my Lord, the Master, I feel something like diffidence. So he is comparing his love for his master and that Sati's love for her husband. And he says, I have a feeling of diffidence. Probably he says, whether I have that such passionate love or whatever. But he clarifies further. So far as I understand it, this action of hers was actuated by an eager desire to remain close to her husband ever after death, in the other plane of existence. In the subtler plane of existence, she wanted to be continuously in the company of the husband, not only in the physical plane where the bhutas, that means earth, fire and water, which composes our body. The subtler plane is different. In that plane, she wanted to continue the company of the husband. If the only purpose of a sati is to maintain a perpetual connection with her husband, I think she may well be compared to a true disciple who also likes to maintain his link with the master after he has given up his material form. True disciple, like we all of us now are reading him, and we are trying to be in touch with his thoughts. So we are all linked with him because we are allowing his thoughts to percolate into our mind. So in that sense, we are all linked to him actually. So we would like to strengthen this link so that this link is a permanent, just like that Sati lady wanted to have a permanent association with her deceased husband. If only the purpose of a sati is to maintain a perpetual, I'm repeating again and again so that, we'll have more time to think about it. If the only purpose of a sati is to maintain a perpetual connection with her husband, I think she may well be compared to a true disciple who also likes to maintain his link with the master after he has given up his material form. Will not such a devoted disciple be at par with a sati? Now Babuji is pondering and is trying to equate a true disciple with a sati, and he's put a question mark there. So he obviously does not agree, or he wants to probe further and come out with his conclusions of his introspection or his hypothesis. This is a hypothesis, whether the true disciple's state of mind and the sati state is at par or not. Now, let us for a while consider the theory of Purusha and Prakriti as the positive and negative forces of nature. Purusha is positive. That means the Sankhyan, this is a pure Sankhyan metaphysics, where the Atman inside you, the Drashta inside you is treated as Purusha. And in Vedantic view, that Atman is called the Brahman itself. But yoga does not posits multiple Purushas. That's a different thing. But the idea you should have, Purusha is the seer inside you, the drashta or the awareness inside you. And Prakriti is matter. Your buddhi, intelligence, manasu, sense organs, motor organs are all Prakriti. Okay? As the positive and negative forces of nature. Woman as a female represents Prakriti or the negative, while man as a male represents Purusha or positive. A disciple is absorbed in the thought of the master, who is presumably the positive. For that, he must necessarily make himself negative. Taking into account the two terms mathematically, the former refers to going above the base of zero, while the latter refers to going below. Okay, that means the disciple will make himself negative. Then only he can interact with a positive thing. So positive thing is God or the master or the Purusha. Let the present state of man be the starting point or the base. Present state is you're not loving him. You do not know. You do not know. Suddenly you're overcome by suffering and misery, dukkha, suffering and old age and all that. Then you feel that you should turn to the infinite presence of God so that you will be free from the suffering of this world. So if you take that state, let's take the present state of man be the starting point or base. Negation therefore means going below or giving up, or in other words, becoming poor and destitute of all which constituted his apparent being. That is materiality. Okay, next. Will that not count as an advance towards that which is presumed to be reality? He's putting a question, and we obviously agree with him. It's true. If so, that means one proceeding towards negation gets gradually transformed as positive. So if we get rid of our wrong notions, get rid of our idea that our neti, this sense organs are temporary, this manasu is temporary, the buddhi is also constantly changing, so it cannot be reality. Like that, we keep on giving up our attachments to property, attachment to name, attachment to physical form. So as we giving up, we are becoming negative. But by becoming negative, we are merging into we are getting attracted to positive. So that's the theory is developing actually. So if so, that means one proceeding towards negation gets gradually transformed as positive. This may lead one to the conclusion that a female or a sati will thus be transformed into a male. In the strict spiritual sense, the positive refers to that which is devoid of the sense of masculinity. In that case, it may then be parallel to femininity. But it is not that also, since femininity is linked with negation and we ourselves have become negative. Thus, he is not female as well. What then? In its real sense, it is neither positive nor negative, but beyond both. I have tried to express it as follows. When the drop merges with the ocean, it becomes itself transformed as ocean. Actually, that is why the problem of spirituality is the mind and buddhi, manasu, ahankara is of the nature of matter or prakriti, and God is of the nature of consciousness, which and it is extremely subtle than matter. So gross matter cannot conceive of, cannot understand God because it is subtler than its own nature. So that's why Babuji says we have to purify our mind by making it as subtle as possible, by meditating on the subtlest aspect. And he has given us the divine light without luminosity, the subtlest object. So when the gross mind becomes subtler and subtler, then you will understand that God is neither positive or negative, neither existence nor existence, neither sakara or nirakara. I mean, it is difficult to describe. They have kept it quiet, but now we understand that we cannot put him under any pigeonhole that he is like this, he is like that, and all that. That is the final extent of love so far as spirituality is concerned. When a man attaches himself firmly to one who is neither male nor female, he himself finally becomes like that. Now, a Sati's conception of her husband as a man and her intense love for him in that capacity keeps her rigidly confined to that conception. So actually, the comparison between a Sati and a spiritual man is wrong, because the Sati's conception is very gross. She's taking the concept of gender as a reality, and then she'll be stuck there. Her progress, spiritual progress, will be arrested there, because her conception is nowhere near actual reality. It is a very grosser evolution of reality. So in that sense, she's not so different from a real devotee, actually. Now a Sati's conception of her husband as a man and her intense love for him in that capacity keeps her rigidly confined to that conception, and her approach to liberation is barred. Now he is selling her liberation is barred. In the same way, if a disciple does not fix his thought upon the non-positive and non-negative conception of the Guru, he can never achieve the final goal. This is important again. I believe that a Sati at her highest pitch secures control of the elements required for the composition of the human frame. This is because her thought ever remained focused on the body and does not go beyond. But if her husband happens to be one who has secured a higher approach, she would automatically be pulled up beyond to that level of his approach. So suppose the husband is a liberated person, automatically she'll be liberated. That is why in the trainer's manual, in our Vedic Indian thinking, a woman is allowed to meditate on her husband, and then that is spiritually acceptable, actually. But if her husband happens to be one who has secured a higher approach, she would automatically be pulled up to that level of his approach. This is my view. I do not know what the Shastras say about it. As for myself, I am fully convinced that if the Guru is not himself up to the highest pitch of spiritual elevation, his disciple shall definitely remain short of the mark, unless he establishes his connection direct with the Supreme. That may perhaps be the reason why preference is given to direct love with the Supreme. It may, however, be surprising to find that in spite of her meritorious love, devotion, and sacrifice for her husband, a Sati lady has no access up to liberation. The only reason, in my opinion, is that she naturally takes him as husband and supporter in the capacity of a human being. On the other hand, if her husband has been away from the idea of his own being, which is most rarely the case, she would automatically have gone up above that baser conception. Thus, in a way, her husband may be held responsible for her non-attainment of liberation. It's quite clear, I think. We'll go ahead. The reason why I have emphasized so much upon negation is that without it, the unfoldment of the knots and one's expansion can never be possible. The grains of wheat, each of which has an integral entity of its own, when ground into flour, lose their individuality by casting off their coverings. Negation is really nothing but nullifying the energy which had contributed to the formation of the solid form or the positive phase. Similarly, so long as a man retains his integral state of grossness, his individuality is accountable like that of a grain of wheat, which loses its individuality and becomes finer or subtler only when it is ground up or negativated. So grounding up is a painful process anyway. In the process, the grosser particles of its being are shattered and the bondages are torn off. In other words, the positiveness is lost and a state of uniformity is introduced, which establishes a closer contact with the real. One is neither positive nor negative, but beyond both. I never took my master in any, this is important point. Whenever you are thinking of Babuji or Guru, I mean, Vardachari or people have taken Kasturi as their, they have developed a lot of attachment to various preceptors. It is a known fact. I know so many people who are attached to so many preceptors who are disciples of Babuji. This is a practical point which shines the true knowledge about this whole idea actually. I never took my master in any but in that sense. That means beyond both. And I felt his light alone shining in every heart, whether that of a friend or foe. The result was that finally I began to feel my own self in every being. A dog seemed to be quite akin to me. Every distinction was lost. A lump of gold and that of clay were alike to me in worth. The sense of relativity got almost extinct, and the link of relationship seemed to be cut off. I never looked upon any of my relations in the spirit of kinship. My father, mother, brother, and children all appeared to my view just as they really must. This, though not an ordinary attainment, can easily be achieved through the simple sadhana of Sahajmarg. The state comes in by itself in due course after sufficient advancement. It is in fact an advanced state of Vairagya. Now, in respect of the associates who are under training with me, suppose I think of them as my disciples. Shall I not thereby be doing discredit to myself by imposing again the link of relationship which had so kindly been cut off by the magic effect of my master's grace? The thought of their being disciples would create in me an idea of being myself a guru. So in that case, the training imparted by me shall never be pure and free from egoistic feelings, and anything disparaging or derogatory to my position will incite me to fury. May the Supreme Master keep off this worst evil from our sanstha forever. Now, since I do not think of anyone as my disciple, there is no reason for me to mind any unbecoming behavior from his side. If you examine this with the heart's eye, you will find that it goes to promote the feeling of non-beingness. Thus, we take up from the very beginning the thing which we have to finally arrive at. I mean, there's a lot of thing to contemplate, and then very significant article. We'll stop here. I just want to add again one of my favorite thoughts which struck me very strongly when I was reading about Kabir. He talks about Sati again, and he talks about the difficulty of controlling your mind. He talks about how the ego puts up all sorts of efforts to see that it is negativated. I mean, the ego has to be negativated. That means the notion, you must understand the definition of ego given by Patanjali. He says only 5 words. He says drag darshana shaktyo ekatmata asmita, he says. That means drag is the power of seeing, that the seer in you. Let us be very clear on this. It's very important. Drag is the power of seeing. Darshana is the instrument of seeing. Like the eye is one instrument, but the main instrument, eye, relays that information to buddhi. So buddhi is the real instrument of seeing. And these are powers, instrumental power of seeing, the subjective power of seeing. They look similar, and because of their similarity, the notion of ego arises. That means the buddhi which is an instrument of seeing, feels that it is the Atma or Purusha or God. So that notion is called ego. So ego it is continuously strengthened by our, if you're not alert and if you're not having discrimination, if you think that you are the doer, it keeps on getting strengthened actually. So it is very difficult to shake off ego unless you are absorbed in the thought of the master continuously. Then that becomes weakened and then finally it goes away. But it's a struggle and it requires hard work and all that. It requires repeated practice also. So in order to point out that fact, Kabir comes out with his rustic way of telling about Sati. He says, when the Sati woman, when the husband dies, I believe it's a North Indian custom there, she's dressed up like a bride with all her fine jewelry and all that, and with a earthen pot on top of her head filled with kumkum, actually, the thing which they put on that sindoor, you know. And then once she takes that pot and she passes through the streets of the town, she will not throw back that pot. Suppose she has got, now she becomes afraid of that and she wants to live and then continue her life, and then she throws that pot, she will lose respect in the society and all that. So once she takes and sits on that pyre, the funeral pyre, at that time the ego realizes that this lady is determined to go and meet her husband in the other plane of existence. So at that time the ego gives up. Before that, it will continuously tries to attack you and see that you do not move towards God at all. So unless you have made a very firm determination to reach the goal, it will be very difficult to tackle the ego. It will very easily defeat you. So I found that very interesting. That means the decision to the faith and determination and the willpower to reach the goal, the craving to reach the goal, if it is strong, then only you will get rid of this. This is a klishta vritti, that is a painful cause of all misery, is the ego. Apart from ignorance is the mother of that. And ignorance, when it becomes strong, you can call it as ego, whatever it is. So this is in short about this. We'll continue next week. If anybody has got any questions, we'll. Keshav, ఏమైనా చెప్తావా?
No, that's one of the things you mentioned about that he feels even for a while as a guru. Interesting one.
My God.
And many people feel that they are gurus already anyway, therefore.
And because he wrote that they lost the ocean. Almost apart from very few exceptions, I mean, I can't make this statement, but I have a feeling that many preceptors will have this feeling at some point of time that they are gurus, but then if they are practicing correctly, temporarily it may come and go, but you can, if you read the chapter called Guru in Babuji's this thing, he says you should work hard or practice your spiritual life with love and devotion and for spiritual elevation. Once this feeling goes away, then only you should enter into this field as a guru, he says. Then you are a servant, actually. You are not a guru. You are a servant of God. So you have to enter into the field as a servant when this feeling of guru is gone, actually. And clear ka rastad. Before that, you should not enter into the field of service. That it is possible to come out of it. I mean, the whole agenda of spiritual training is to, become free from all these bondages, Anything, Dharmesh, और कुछ है क्या?
नहीं.
कोई और नहीं बात कर रहा, अपन नहीं बात कर रहे बस. Okay, you can close the screen and put the whole people on the screen.
Vivek, Ravi.
It was enlightening, sir, today's session.
Yeah, we have to think. You see, Babuji himself is saying that I was curious to study the mind of that lady, and I tried to ponder over the state of mind which he is in.
Correct,
so, after becoming a master, he is pursuing that investigation so that it will help us to know. So, we should also develop that skill to.
Correct. And
not only for ourselves, if we develop that skill, we'll help others help them in their spiritual growth actually. So if you study, if you know the nature of the mind properly, then you can gain control over it. And if you gain control over it, you will be able to help others also. That's how spirituality spreads.
And I mean, he ponders over it and he concludes that is, I mean, the method itself may not be correct, but then the clarity that emerges as a result of pondering, and he says that maybe I'm not so. He feels diffidence in possibly
correct as unable. He never gave his judgment that it is correct and wrong. He never judged that that's Sati. He in fact he says no. In fact, he says, when I compare her devotion to the husband and my devotion to my guru, I feel a kind of a diffidence. A slight praise is there in that. He is not judging it is wrong. He's only saying that it may not lead to liberation, because if the husband is not liberated. But the modern Christianity, they talk derogatory terms about Sati and all that. It is not correct actually. And when Hindus who are now coming onto the YouTube and saying that we have reformed our Hinduism, we have abolished Sati and all that, it is not so. Even if you see the recently done Ahalya by Holkar's TV serial is coming. When her husband died, she wanted to commit Sati actually, and she's a very very great lady. She's a very heroic person actually. But then her father-in-law says that your services will be useful for the country, and then he does this and he pleads with her not to commit Sati. So saying that Sati is a cruel and barbaric practice which the Christian missionaries have, it's not. I feel it's not correct. You see, Babuji didn't judge her that it is a bad practice at all.
Yeah, that's right. No, I'm not saying that, sir. I mean, thinking that she did it out of, so he kind of concluded from a spiritual angle that
her conception was limited. That's all.
Limited, exactly.
Her conception of reality was limited.
Correct.
To just a physical company of the husband, actually. Correct. Physical is a very gross thing, Matter always changes. Even subtle matter, the mind, buddhi, manasu, they will be constantly changing. No, they are not steady. Only unchanging thing is God only. So even my mind, I was having my mind since several lives. So it is continuous. Even in this life, kal ka mind aaj nahi hai na, change hote ja raha thinking. Now we have added further information from Babuji's thoughts. Our minds have changed now. Our minds are transformed now. So we are constantly changing. So whether the change is towards our goal or away from the goal is the point actually.
And our cleaning can also be considered as like a, maybe a Mahapralaya or,
No, cleaning is very clear cut, you know. Yeah, the samskaras actually, the samskaras breed thoughts and actions, and thoughts and actions again form samskaras. And then one samskara, I want to see one cinema, a thought comes, I see the cinema, and then I'm attracted to certain aspects of the movie. Then I have an emotion of anger or an emotion of sadness. That emotion I react, and then I react to that, and it's a big network. It's a continuous network. And then you die, those samskaras remain, you are born with that, and then it's a perpetual, you're trapped in that cycle. They're just like a animal which is trapped in a snare in a jungle. You're trapped in that, and you don't get liberation unless those samskaras are completely cleaned actually. So once the samskaras are totally cleaned by cleaning and preventing formation of samskaras by practicing constant remembrance through the process of Ishvara Pranidhana. That means you dedicate, Babuji says constant remembrance, before you do any work, dedicate that activity to the master. So suppose I'm doing a surgery, I must pray and get into a state of mind where I should think that this operation I'm doing for the patient, I'm dedicating it to you, it is yours. So whatever result is yours. So if I do like that, then samskaras will not form. But earlier samskaras will be cleaned by your cleaning practice and the trainer's cleaning practice. So once the samskaras are gone, only then the sattvic element in your mind will become predominant, and that mind becomes very subtle, and that mind only can feel the presence of God clearly. Under the influence of pranahuti, you'll feel peaceful because that is master's grace. But that is if you don't hold to that experience, you'll slip back into normal grosser way of thinking.
True, sir.
Our question, we'll meet again.
Okay. Yeah, we'll meet next week. Yeah.
Next Sunday.